There's people out there these days that claim to be atheists, claim to be naturalists, claim to, be people that don't believe in God, aren't interested in the question of God. And I really believe most of these people adopt these worldviews not because they have any good reason to, but just because it's cool, it's fashionable, it's in.
Whoa. Guys, did you know that? We're fashionable. We made it. We're in. We are so freaking awesome. I always wanted to be awesome. Let's do this. Greetings, fellow space travelers. BionicDance here. One thing you hear a lot from theists is what it must be like to be an atheist. They always make it sound like we're just on the verge of suicide. It always seems like they're describing us, the way they'd feel without their religion, and it makes me wonder whether they've actually sat down and had a chat with one of us, like a real heart-to-heart.
And also, if you think about it, it goes in hand with other worldviews such as that of materialism.
He's about to use a totally legit definition of materialism, but it's going to be annoying to most of you, I guarantee it, because it's not the definition we'd use if we called ourselves materialists. Fair warning.
I mean, if you're very materialistic in nature and you're focused on, you define yourself by what you possess from a material perspective and what you can possess in the future, if that's what you're focused on, the material, then obviously it's going to be difficult for you to think about anything else. Think about some of the more pressing questions that human beings ask, such as, who am I? Where have I come from? What's my purpose? Where am I going? Who created me? Who sent me? Who put me here?
A lot of those so-called pressing questions are ones about which I don't actually give a flying fornication, while others start with premises I don't believe. Who am I? That's up to me, isn't it? Hell, if I want to be a materialist, that is who I am. What is my purpose? Where am I going? Again, that's up to me. The assumption seems to be that someone else gets to decide this, like I'm their appliance or computer program, and that's far more depressing than being without religion could possibly be. Who created me? Much like my purpose, this assumes an external agency, clearly one beyond my biological progenitors. And I don't believe that either. As I said, he's coming from a mindset that is not universal to all people.
One thing I want to touch upon in this video is, and it's upon the second chapter of the book, The Divine Reality, and I've been meaning to do this for a while, but I haven't gotten around to it. And the second chapter of this book is called, let me give it to you now, it's called Life Without God, and it's one of my favorite chapters. Because here Hamza doesn't make an argument for God's existence, nor does he make an argument necessarily against atheism or anything. The chapter simply discusses or highlights that if you adopt a worldview, if you claim a worldview such as atheism or naturalism in this case, then you have to realize that it comes with implications, right? And the implications of atheism and naturalism are very, very bleak. They're very dark. It's a very depressing state of affairs if you think about it.
Is it though? This is clearly a matter of opinion and perspective. I think it's only bleak, dark, and depressing if you let it be, if you need more than the material world. And I don't. We're living in a material world, and I am a material girl. Sorry, I'm an 80s kid. Couldn't help myself.
Look, if you deny God and you say there is no creator, there is no creative power behind this entire universe, this whole cosmos and life, then what you're left with is the view that everything that exists is an accident. Everything that exists is an accidental byproduct of random physical cold processes and stuff that's been taking place over God knows how many millions of years.
Well, if there is no God, then clearly he wouldn't know how many years. And it's round about 13.8 billion of them. I believe it started on a Wednesday, round about 4:36 p.m. But here's the thing, and I can't state this enough. Stop saying random. If the universe were truly random, it would be the most chaotic place ever, unpredictable and terrifying. But what we see is order, not chaos. Nothing is random until you get down to the quantum level. What you mean is unguided by an intelligence. If you state it that way, then yes, that's what we've observed, and that's what I'm currently convinced is so. But, and? What's so horrible about that?
Right? Therefore, everything that's emerged is an accident, including yourselves and myself. We're an accident. Our lives are an accident. And when we die, we will just die and we will leave. And if this is the case, then where is the purpose? Where is the ultimate purpose in life? Now, you may claim purpose. You may say, well, my purpose is to be a doctor, an engineer, do charity work. All good and well. You can give yourself purpose, but this is not your ultimate purpose. What is what is our ultimate purpose? Everything else around us seems to have a purpose. Things we make seem to have a purpose. We make things with a purpose, but when it comes to us, we don't have an ultimate purpose, right? And deep down inside, we know that we do, but you can't account for one on atheism or naturalism.
Again with the assumptions and the projection. No, we don't all know that we have an ultimate purpose, deep down inside or otherwise. Seriously, not everybody feels that way, and not everybody needs it either. And while I may be wrong, a concession I rarely see theists willing to make, I think that this burning need for answers, right or wrong, the need for certainty, right or wrong, and to not fear death is what makes and keeps many people religious. The courage required to face the unknown and to accept that one day your story will end and that it only meant anything to those who knew you is something that most God-botherers don't have, but which atheists do. As I'm fond of saying, I like being alive. It might actually be my favorite thing, but I've accepted that I will one day die. I'm not afraid of it. I'm disappointed by it. There are so many things I'll never get to experience, like, say, interstellar space travel. And that's something I regret, and that's my only true problem with the finality of death. I'm not afraid to be dead. I'm only afraid of how I end up that way, 'cause there are some pretty nasty ways to go. My recent experiences with brain surgery taught me this. When they knocked me out, it wasn't like being asleep. It was like a light switch was turned off. And yeah, on again, but it really felt like that. I didn't feel like I was waking up afterward. It was just nothing, and then something again. I can't really explain it, but it was a profound experience that changed me in ways I didn't even really know needed changing. It didn't so much give me the courage to face my eventual death, but rather made stronger that courage I already had, no God required. It made for me what theists seemed to need so very unnecessary in my own life.
Take value, for example. You know, we value things, we give different value to different things. So human beings, for example, if it was between myself as a human being and this book, you know, if someone was to destroy one of these and you had to vote, I'm sure most of the same people out there would vote that the book be destroyed and not myself. And if you were asked as to why, you would say, well, you're a human being, you're more complex, you're living, you know, you have this, that, and the other, the book is just a material book. But again, on atheism and naturalism, if we really think about it, what's the difference? What is the difference? Because I am just a rearrangement of material matter, physical stuff, and so is the book. We're just a different rearrangement of matter. If you now bring in these ideas such as, oh, you're conscious, you're living, you're complex, these are things that you're just introducing. Why assume these principles that you're bringing into play here? If we really think about it, on atheism and naturalism, there is no difference. You can claim a difference, but you can make one up on your worldview. But really, if we really think about it, there is no difference. It's just a different rearrangement of material stuff.
This makes so many incorrect assumptions about the nature of value and about having a secular viewpoint that, honestly, responding to it could be a video unto itself. In fact, if I were to search my back catalog, there's probably quite a few dealing with this issue already. Responding requires that everything he's assumed be knocked down and rebuilt from scratch. What does it mean for something to be valuable in the first place? I don't think that it's a particularly unreasonable leap to say that this guy believes things have intrinsic or ultimate value, regardless of anybody's opinion, except perhaps his God's. But that's not so. Value is relative. Value is an opinion on how important something is. If someone isn't there to have an opinion on something's worth, how can it even have value? It can't. Nothing has intrinsic value, God or no God. It's all entirely subjective, a matter of perspective, no matter how much you might wish otherwise. And that does seem to be where his arguments are coming from. If he doesn't like it, it must not be so.
Yeah, and I really believe there's many people out there, you know, who, for one reason or the other, have adopted these worldviews, but now they are experiencing some of these implications. They're actually living with them. This existential crisis that they're going through. Who am I? Where have I come from? You know, if you look at some of these forums online, you can see some of the people that adopt these worldviews are really depressed, very anxious. You know, they try to drink away their problems.
I'm sure people like that exist and that's tragic, but what's the point he's trying to make here? That this somehow means a secular worldview is incorrect? That being unhappy means that someone should reject the facts, not deal with reality? That most atheists are as sad as he'd apparently be without religion? You know, if you do a little digging, you'll find that religion itself is actually the problem. In countries where religious people are in the majority, yes, atheists have a tendency to be less happy, but in countries where religion isn't quite so all-pervading, happiness and religiosity seem to have no correlation at all. Religions have a tendency to engage in in-group versus out-group behavior. You may have noticed. And so when you're a non-believer and in the minority, it can make your world a bit lonely or even scary. So maybe your churchy types could be a bit less obnoxious, maybe. Ease up on the bullying attack? Just a suggestion.
Now I want us to really think about this, and I'm going to conclude by sharing a very profound verse from the Quran.
No, he's not. Seriously, he never actually reads the verse. He just sort of summarizes it. And neither it nor his subsequent commentaries say anything not already said in his video. Thus, until next time, fellow space travelers, this is BionicDance saying don't run on automatic. Instead, please think. In fact, if I search my back catalog, there probably are all damn it. A lot of those so-called pressing questions are one about which I don't actually give a flying fornication I'm doing that over. But that's not so. Value is relative. Value is an appealian. In countries where religious people are in the majority, then yes, atheists has a.
Attention citizens, failure to contribute will result in suspended oxygen privileges. Attention citizens, failure to contribute will result in suspended oxygen privileges. Attention citizens.
Not rating and subscribing has been found to cause obesity, acne, and male pattern baldness in laboratory rats.
Yeah, whatever.
Don't let this happen to you. Be sure to rate and subscribe.